I just wanted to share with you today the last few books that I've read, and one that I'm still currently reading, and a couple that I'm rereading right now. And these are them right over here. So I'll show them to you. I put them all. Okay, so we've got Passion and Purpose by Jimmy Siebert, Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine. We've got The Book of God by Walter Wangerin Jr., Meetings Suck by Cameron Herold, Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and then another two books that were part of that series, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday and Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. I will start over here. So this is the third book of this installment. I read this just about a month ago, or less than a month ago. And it's basically talking about how we're just too busy as a culture, and always have been. And so to take some time, to take some breaths, to be still. There's some wonderful stories in here about just being calm and still and in the moment, and how sometimes, and in fact a lot of times, the busyness that we create actually makes things even harder for ourselves. And so just to be still and take things as they come, that is probably the best course of action. Okay, so again, Stillness is the Key. This is a book that is about being still, being in the moment, taking breaths, not necessarily coming to your first reaction, whether that is good or bad, or to fight or to flight. They talk about Kennedy and the missile program, how he took some time just to journal and to think about what he was going to do. And so that was a pretty good book. I have a feeling Ryan Holiday isn't that still as a man, and so some of it just didn't ring true. It was just kind of like stories he heard about other people, but still a well-researched book for sure. And these three books here, they came in a packet, and it looks just like this. It's called The Way, the Enemy, the Key. It's a 3-book set, and that got recommended to me by a old friend. The next one, the middle book that he wrote in this series, is called Ego is the Enemy. It is all about times when your ego gets in the way of doing what the right thing is to do. In fact, almost destroying you. He has lots of examples going all the way back to before Jesus' time of people who maybe should have listened to the people around them, but instead their own ego told them to move forward or to do something, and it was not the right step. Again, Ryan Holiday, hyper successful person, had a hard time believing that he knew much about how to control his own ego. I do think ego is the enemy. I think it's well researched, but I don't think he has much of an emotional connection to that as much as he wants to. I think he probably wants to. This is his first book that I read of his, and it's the first book in the series called The Obstacle of the Way. This is by far and away the best book, with tons of great examples of people who see something in their way and they succeed because of it, is how he says it, not in spite of it. So for example, let's just talk about Jesus for a second. So Jesus, the obstacle is the cross. It was an embarrassing way to die. It was a humiliating and painful way to die. But through the cross came the defeating of death, all the pain that was supposed to be poured out on us as humans for sinning, and that was taken care of on the cross. And so through the cross became the way. In fact, Jesus was the way to get to eternal life. So just an example of somebody who saw something that could not possibly be a benefit to anybody, the cross, the way to die, turn it into the biggest blessing and benefit to everybody. This is his most well-researched book. It has the best stories. I'm rereading it right now just because I enjoy the stories, and I'm trying to underline and find my favorite ones. I highly recommend this book, and this is one that he definitely connects with in a personal way. I can tell as I'm reading this book that he really knows this stuff, believes this stuff, and has encountered and used this stuff to his benefit. He was a major in charge of marketing at American Apparel and a few other places. So, all right, so that one I'm rereading right now because I enjoyed it so much. And next one I had to read for work. They mailed it to me last week, and I read it really fast. It's called Meetings Suck. It's supposed to be a practical guide on EOS, which is the traction system. And it was not my favorite. I can tell this person, Cameron Herold, has some experience, but he self-published the book. It looks like he just, in fact, the back of the book, it talks about how he self-published. It looks like he just dictated things and they just wrote it out. So it only looks like it was maybe written once. And then the way it was written just didn't make much sense or flow that well. But my company wants to use it as their meeting template. The odd thing is we only have 10 people in our meetings. We have a meeting every day. And this book is really written, it looks like, for businesses, 100 or more people. So we'll figure out how they're going to apply that. But that was the next book I read. This is the book I'm currently reading. And as soon as I reread the 2 books that I wanted to read, I was telling you about, I'm going to finish reading this. It is a long book. It's called the Book of God. It's the whole Bible novelized. So they don't do every story in the Bible, but they do most. And so I think I just finished the book of Joshua. And now, let me see where I'm at. The Levite's concubine. The Levite's concubine. So anyway, they're inside of, this is just past the story of Joshua. I'll have to figure out what the Levite's concubine is about. But they novelized the entire book. This, again, is such a big undertaking by this writer. I think that he only wrote it maybe once, maybe one rewrite, because some of the stuff is really, really good, and then some of the stuff, it looks like they just kind of pieced it together to get the book completed. So it's interesting too, and it definitely makes the Bible stories come more alive. So I got that as a gift for, I believe, Christmas, and I just took it up kind of recently until I got all these other books in the mail. This is by far and away my favorite self-help book that I've ever read, and I've probably read 30 or 40 of them and taken seminars and classes. This is the one that makes the most sense. This is recommended to me by a friend, and I read it recently, and now I'm going through and rereading it. I'll probably have it finished today or tomorrow by the second reading. It's called Positive Intelligence. It's by Shirzad Chamine. And what this book is about, every single self-help book, even The Obstacle is the Way, they tell you, hey, these are all these people that conquered these insurmountable odds, and this is how they did it, and this is how they saw things, which is great. But what are the actual practical steps to seeing every obstacle as a blessing, to stopping yourself from hindering yourself? And in this book, Positive Intelligence, it really breaks down exactly what you're supposed to do to stop yourself from hurting yourself mentally or not getting your full potential, and what you have to do to activate the centers of your brain. And really what it is being in the moment. So when you're in a moment and you're seeing like, okay, this is something that is happening to me right now, I get to choose whether it's positive or negative. And then you make the choice that it's going to be positive for you, and then this is how you connect yourself to it. And it's all about like sensories, like, rubbing your fingers together and just taking in the intake that is actually happening to you, not what you perceive is going to happen in your brain. And so this book talks a lot about what they call the saboteurs and then the accomplice saboteurs. And so your main saboteur, or somebody who is in your head that is always stopping you from reaching your full potential, is called the judge. And the judge is just somebody who's always judging you and judging other people. And that is something everybody has, and it's fairly obvious. They do some research in there to prove it, but I knew that already. And then you have 9 possible accomplice saboteurs, and my accomplice saboteur is the hypervigilant. So anytime I see something that is happening, I picture it way down the road. I picture all the things that could go wrong. I picture, all these terrible scenarios. I work them up in my head in seconds, and it stops me from acting a lot of times. And anyway, they say in this book that those are not your friends. I always thought that the judge was my friend. Hey, he's helping me be critical of myself and others. That helps me be better. And then I'm hypervigilant, so I'm always ready for, you know, the fight or the danger or whatever it's going to happen or any kind of tragedy. Those are not my friends. What is my friend is the 5 what they call sages. So the 5 sage techniques, and you know, I'm in that section right now. So one is empathy, so empathizing with the person or yourself that you're talking to, and one way of doing that they even tell you is to picture that person or yourself as a little child, you know, chasing a butterfly or playing in a sandbox, and it helps you connect with them better. Exploring the possibilities, so you know, exploring like all the different things, and these are things that you do when you're really interested in something, whereas the judge wants to stop all that stuff and the hypervigilant wants to tell you exactly what's going to happen instead of all the possibilities that could happen. And so this is just I could not recommend this book more for somebody who has been down the rabbit hole like I have with a million different 30 or 40 different self-help books, like all the best ones. They always pump you up for a short period of time, but they never give you the practical advice to actually fix anything, in my opinion. So I know that's a harsh criticism of all the other self-help books, but this is a wonderful book. This one actually right back here is another good one if you're bouncing around through jobs so good they can't ignore you. I got that when I was part of Mentor Box, but that one's all about, you know, working on your skills, taking lateral steps through careers instead of, you know, about faces, and working on you. But anyway, that's another good one too. But this one for your own personal development, whether it's in relationships or work, is great. And the way that the analogy is that they used in this book that I thought was perfect was, you're in a sandcastle competition, right, on a beach. And maybe you've seen one of those, maybe you haven't, but they build these big elaborate sandcastles. It takes them forever, and you need somewhat semi-wet sand to be able to build these things. And so in this sandcastle competition, you can take classes and get better at building faster sandcastles, because every day, twice a day, the tide comes in and it's going to wash everything out. So you need to get your sandcastles done before the tide comes in. Let's just say you're building a little closer to the water. So how many sandcastles can you build? How beautiful can you build them? Well, you can take classes on how to build them faster. You can build them faster. You can increase your times. That's all the other self-help books, right? You can learn how to do things better. And what this does is this teaches you, because it teaches you about the saboteurs, or the things that are stopping you from, stopping yourself from reaching your potential, which is, for me, my main one is the judge, of course. Everyone's main one is the judge, and my second one is the hypervigilant. And there's other ones out there like the victim, the hyper-rational. Anyway, you can read the book and find one that's good for you. So in the sandcastle competition, this is like, instead of building sandcastles for a short time, let's build a moat and a wall to stop the tide from coming in. Then even if we're building sandcastles a little bit slower than everybody else who's in the competition, who's, say, reading the other self-help books, the castles that we build will not be affected by the tides coming in or our saboteurs that are in our head, because we identify them and we can move past them. And so our sandcastles will reach their potential and we will win the competitions, so to speak. So it's a great analogy of, you know, take the time to set the environment for success around you, instead of just working really, really hard on yourself, and then, you know, you start picking away at yourself in your head as far as all the things that you don't do well. So rereading that one now, rereading Obstacle is the Way. They were my 2 favorite books in the last 7 that I read over the last probably 2 months, and I'm getting a lot more out of it this second time. Actually, I would say, yeah, and I'm underlining stuff and trying to remember things. The last book I read was something we read with church, and I started it and then I took a break when those other books came in, and I just finished it recently. It's called Passion and Purpose. It's all about our pastor, Jimmy Siebert's book about encountering Jesus all across the world. The church that I go to is what's called a church plant church, or a missionary church. It's more of a missionary church, and so their main goal is to get people out into the mission fields, and this is stories that he has. A lot of them are from Mongolia, Sri Lanka, India, Southeast Asia, Indonesia. During times when they went out there, they experienced tribes and people who have never heard the word of Jesus, and it's a lot of healing for those people. So those are the books up here. One of them came in a 3-pack. after these are done, I don't know what I'll read because I've always had such a long list of books, and hopefully this is it for a while, but I'm going to finish that one probably next couple days, finish Obstacle of the Way the second time on both of those, hopefully within a week and a half, and then I will hopefully finish the Book of God by my anniversary, which is on, which is in about just over a month, probably about 5 weeks away. Gosh, it would be really great if I could finish that, and then maybe take a book break for a while, or read a fiction book, because all I read is nonfiction. It seems for some reason for me to kind of focus my brain more. I've read fiction books in the past and enjoyed them and had a hard time putting them down, just like a movie would be if it's a really good book, but some reason I just didn't feel good at the end of it. I didn't feel like I was improved or anything like that. So, but maybe it's time to read another one. So those are the last books that I've read. I've read a lot of books in different categories over the years. And also that So Good They Can't Ignore You book. Excellent book if you're kind of a career hopper like I was for a long time. Now I have a good job. And it really, it was after I read that book, I was like, okay, what can I do with all the things that I've learned over the years? There's also another one called like Web of, it's called Web of Work, I think it's called, and it's all about what you've done over your life. So to be able to put together a good career path for you. So anyway, thanks for watching this video today. I hope you guys have an awesome day today, and go out there and tell me if you've read any of these books, or if you have a book recommendation for me. Thanks.